Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Anandal, for attending this FDP. Really, before starting the session, I want to thank our management for giving me this wonderful opportunity to arrange this 5 days faculty development program on accreditation 2020 roadmap and guidelines. About this FDP, I want to convey one message about this. Whatever we learned from our practical experience while we are going for our NAC accreditation process, and whatever I learned from my previous experience regarding this NAC accreditation. So the entire FDP is dedicated for the NAC accreditation process for the new accreditation framework, which was implemented from the year 2017 onwards. And I want to convey one more thing. So during presentation, if you want to ask any questions, you just make the note of that. Then at the end of the session, we can ask the questions one by one. Then whatever I know, I'll clarify the doubt. Okay. So we have 5 days of session, so that the entire schedule is already conveyed to all the participants. Almost we are sticking with the same topics. So it's a kind of sequential process, so that we won't switch over to the steps before that. We have to follow the sequential steps. So one by one, I will explain. Each day, I will plan accordingly, so that this present today's session is focusing mainly on the overall view of the overall NAC accreditation process and the roadmap. Then from tomorrow onwards, we will discuss in detail of the overall steps. Okay. Let us go for the presentation. Yeah, I want to thank Internal Quality Assurance Cell of GSAM for organizing this 5 days FDP. So let us go to the session. So about myself, I am Dr. Natarajan. So presently I am working here as Associate Professor in Mechanical Department, and I have been here from March 2019 onwards. Earlier, I worked in Tamil Nadu, an autonomous institution, which is a MBA tier 1 institution for more than 14 years. So my graduation, I did my graduation in mechanical engineering in Government College of Technology, Coimbatore. And again, I did my PG in Anna City, Chennai. And I completed my research PhD work in biodegradable polymer composite materials. That's about my academic. Then again, regarding the experience of NAG, as I told earlier, I worked in one of autonomous institution, which is 25-year-old institution. So I started my academic career there in 2016 onwards. Sorry, so 2006 onwards. So during that period, we have undergone many accreditation practices. For example, NBA accreditation. Know that it is engineering college, so that NBA accreditation, NAC accreditation, then autonomous status. We got that autonomous status, incorporation of OPT. So all the things we did earlier. And, during 2017, July 2017, already we got accreditation there. We entered to the second cycle of NAC accreditation through this new accreditation process that we call it as RAF, Revised Accreditation Framework. So initially we felt a little bit difficult to understand this kind of revised accreditation framework, since it is a new one. It is entirely a different one when compared to the previous assessment process. So that we gained a lot of experience while applying this NAC accreditation initially. Then we go to the another one. The prime focus of this FDP is to enlighten and facilitate the faculty community to understand the NAC revised, especially the revised assessment and accreditation process. What are all the process involved in this? And what are all the criteria involved and the various grading systems? Provide the roadmap and detailed guidelines for the NAC accreditation. Then final one is primarily focused on the NAC accreditation, revised accreditation framework. It was introduced in July 2017, and again from this January 2020 onwards, NAC again released a new manual for the assessment and accreditation of affiliated bodies. all university and autonomous also. So that we are going to concentrate on this new manual released on January 2020. Since those institutions want to go for NAAC accreditation, they should come under this new manual January 2020, so that we are covering the new topics. This is what the plan of this FDP schedule. 5 days plan is there. It covers from the introduction and roadmap. Then the next day we'll discuss. Tomorrow probably we'll discuss the detailed steps involved in the NAAC accreditation process, like registration and IAQA. How we can apply IAQA? Then what are the quality indicator frameworks, rest and all. Then third day is very important day, since we have to discuss the self-study report of the session. Self-study report is the prime part in the NAAC accreditation process. We call it as examination paper of college, since your entire college is evaluated based on your self-study report only. The next one, assessment process. So after submitting the SSR process, how the NAAC will assess your SSR and other your institutional details and data and other things. That they have a separate exclusive process is there, DVV and the student satisfaction survey, team visit. So we'll detailedly we'll discuss during 13th July. Then the final day we'll discuss after assessment of your entire thing, how the people are on the NAAC, they are evaluating your institution. Since in the criteria it is only showing the weightage, how the weightage is converted into marks and criteria wise weightage, then based on that how the criteria weightages are converted into grades, right? So usually NAAC is accrediting, giving a grade to the college, starting to A double plus to A, B, C, like that category is there. So this is what the plan of this FDP. So let us go for the today's schedule. So this today we will cover the basic topic, that is introduction to NAAC and the roadmap of the NAAC process. Let us go to the first day session. So this is what the content I planned for covering this today's session. First we are going to discuss about the introduction of NAAC, when it is established, and the few basic details about NAAC. Second one, few accreditation statistics I want to convey to you. So all over India, what is the statistics of the NAAC accreditation higher education institutions. Then the next one, we'll start the revised, what is the revised accreditation framework and why it is implemented and how it is implemented. We can see that. Then the fourth one, how the NAAC is evaluated based on criteria and the corresponding weightages for all the colleges, you can see. And the fifth one, major phases of assessment. Sixth one, major process flow in the NAAC. What are all the overall process involved in the NAAC? We can see as a flow chart. Seventh one, it regards to the management part. Somehow, what is the fee structure for getting the NAAC accreditation process from starting to end grading? The final one, a few roles and responsibility of the faculty I need to convey to all the faculty members. So while incorporating, if you are going for NAAC accreditation, it is the responsibility of the entire faculty community, not only faculty. See, this new accreditation revised framework, which involves all the stakeholders of the institutions, even management and principal, all the deans, all the faculty members, even teaching faculty members. The student side, students, past out students, alumni, even our employers also, they want to interact. So everyone, every people, they are involving in this process. So ninth one, some of the frequently asked question, I'll show a few questions is there, standard questions. So at the end of the session, we can go for the participants question and answer session for 15 minutes. Yeah, quality from the ISO point of view, the definition of the quality is degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfills the requirements. So there are two things are there, various characteristics and the various requirements. So the characteristics may be varies, depends on the company or depends on the institution type, depends on various factors, and also the requirements of the end user also it may vary. If it is institutions, the requirements of the customers, the students is very important. So that characteristics, you may think that physical characteristics, sensory, behavioral characteristics, psychological, temporal characteristics, ergonomic, functional characteristics are required. So in some requirements for to be intended for organizations, maybe if it is a college, it is an institution, and for the customers, if it is a college, it is the students and parents, then for interested parties. Let us go to the another one. What is the accreditation process? So you may define the accreditation process. It is the process of quality assurance. We are giving a quality assurance which determines whether an institution meets the particular standard or established standard for function, structure and performance. As the outset, the institution should meet the particular standards and the requirements which is framed by the accreditation body. So in India, so the higher education institutions are accredited by many agencies. Usually, you can see the University Grant Commission, they have given affiliations to, wait a minute, yeah. So UGC, they are giving accreditation to, affiliation to the colleges. They may give the accreditation of 2F and 12B certificates. And All India Council for the AICTE, they are giving approval for engineering institute, technical institutions. So MHRD, which is involving in the, now you may know aware of that NIR process, National Institutional Ranking Framework. So all over India, they are giving the overall ranking year-wise. They are releasing the ranking for separately for universities, all the higher educational institutions separately, autonomous institutions and affiliated colleges. Then the another one, Association of Indian Universities, they are not much involving in the accreditation process. Then rest of that, Bar Council and Medical Council, Dental, Formal, National Council, yeah, National Council for Teacher Education also is there. So these are mainly involved in affiliation and approval process only. So out of that, two major agencies are doing the accreditation process in India. I'll tell you the two things. The first one, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC, and the second one, National Board of Accreditation, NBA. So these are the two major accreditation bodies which is giving accreditation, either giving a grading or some kind of standard accreditation, which is on par with the worldwide standards. So that they are the member of worldwide organizations of accreditations. So that the accreditations which is offered by NAC and the NBA is well recognized by all the universities from the entire world. So before going to enter in the NAC accreditation framework, then we need to understand the basic difference between the NBA and NAC accreditation process. So usually, basically, you may know that NBA, most of the technical institutions, they are going for NBA accreditation. The prime difference between NAC and NBA is, so NBA is formed by MHRD, then it is an autonomous body. Then another side, UGC is formed by NAC is formed by UGC. It is also an autonomous body. So basically, the difference is NAC. If you are taking NAC, they are giving accreditation to the college. The entire whole college, they are giving a evaluation, assessment, and evaluation. They are doing the entire college, and they are giving CGPA and grading to the entire college, not the particular program or department. In case of NBA, they are accrediting the programs, not the entire college. For example, in your college, if you are running 5 UG programs like BE Mechanical, Civil, so out of 5 programs, you may apply specifically for any 2 or 3 programs for getting accreditation for your particular program. So that this is the basic difference between NBA and NAC. Then another one, this is meant for technical institutions. Mostly NBA accreditation is applicable for technical, like engineering and technology colleges and universities. Even nowadays, they have incorporated polytechnic also. So another side, NAC, it is applicable to most of the higher education institution which is available in India. So like it covers from engineering institutions, universities, kind of arts and science colleges, then degree colleges, BCom, commerce colleges, even teacher training institutions, then BEd colleges, then paramedical. So even the language Sanskrit college also they have given affiliation. This is the basic difference between these two forms. Then another one is NBA, they are giving accreditation for a particular period only. They are giving, for example, if you are applying mechanical engineering accreditation, they are giving this program is accredited for 3 years. And in some, if you are perform exceptionally well, then again they will give, they may give instead of 3 years, they may give the 6 years period of accreditation. This is what. And another one, there are two classification is there, tier 1 institution and tier 2 institution is there. So that tier 1 is applicable for universities and autonomous colleges. Tier 2 is meant for the affiliated colleges. And one more important thing is NBA is not giving any grade to the particular college or department. Just they are giving the accreditation for a period. And if you take NAC, then it is entirely different from that. As I told earlier, it is giving accreditation to entire institution for a period of 5-year duration. Let us assume if you are getting accredited in this month, then your accreditation is valid up to 5 years of duration. So at the end of the 5th year, you have to again go to the another cycle of accreditation. Rarely NAC gives accreditation of 7 years. If you are continuously or consistently performing well, that means in the grading system, if you are getting A+ grade continuously for twice, then again, then if you are going for third cycle, then definitely they will give for accreditation for a period of 7 years in the exceptional case. Let us, there are other differences also there, but this time we'll stop up to this, then we'll go for the NAC process. Yeah, about the NAC, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, it is established in the year 1994. This, the purpose of establishment is based on the National Education Policy, which is framed on 1986. So there only it is initiated. After that, they established the form UGC. It has established this entire NAC council. Then after that, it is recognized as an autonomous institution by the UGC. So that they have the entire separate set work council is there, so body is there. They can take any decision based on their own. Then the another one, headquarter is situated in Bangalore from 1994 onwards. I think recently they have started kind of branch in New Delhi also. Few years back they have started for the North Indian colleges. So the prime role of the NAC is to conduct the assessment and accreditation of HEIs. Usually this word is coined by the NAC, this HEI, higher educational institutions. So the entire NAC manual they are using this word. So hereafter HEI means the higher educational institutions, such as colleges, universities or other recognized institutions, to derive an understanding of the quality status of the institution. So they are not compelling the college to come for the accreditation. The colleges may voluntarily apply for the NAC accreditation. They are giving their duty is they are going to assess your college, and based on that they will give the some quality status in terms of CGPA and grade. I request the participant to mute the mic. Yeah. So there are few types of high HEIs are there in the purview of NAC accreditation process. Starting universities and deemed to be universities, professional institutions, engineering, technology and management and law colleges, that is legal colleges. Then general colleges, we call it as arts, science and commerce institutions. Then the next one, teacher educational institutions. Health science colleges, it includes medical, dental, pharmacy, nursing, Ayurveda, yoga, Siddha, homeopathy and physiotherapy. So the final one is Sanskrit institution also they are accrediting, but for each and every category they have introduced a different variety of manual, since the nature of the courses and the program is different, entirely different, so that they have released different variety of manual for each variety of the institutions. So before going to the process, we should know the basic eligibility requirement of the NAC. The basic eligibility is, since during the SSR preparation, they are asking the last 5-year accreditation data. So last 5-year data means at least your college should have 2 batches should gone out from your college, or existence of the 6 years of the data of the college. Yeah. Next one, very important thing which is required for applying the NAAC process is AASHE portal. This AASHE means All India Survey for Higher Education. This AASHE code is already, all the higher education, they have allocated a separate code for colleges. So I think your college also, they may have this AASHE code, and every year they are asking some few fundamental academic and other information regarding your college. They need to upload the details in the AASHE website. Then based on that, they will give one certificate, the recognized certificate every year. That AASHE code and the certificate is mandatory for registering in the NAAC portal. And another one is, if you are the new one for going for the accreditation, then you may call it as cycle 1. And if you are after accreditation process, after the end of the 5th year, you may go for the renewal of the process. Then at that time, you may call it as cycle 2 and cycle 3 accordingly for the upcoming periods. So let's go for the next session. Yeah. Benefits of the NAAC accreditation. Why I should get NAAC accreditation process? What is the benefit of the institute? There are a lot of things there. The prime benefit is the SWOT analysis of the entire SWOT analysis. Once you entered in the NAAC accreditation process, whatever the grade you got, whether a B plus or A plus or whatever anything, then you may understand your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats also. You may understand the entire SWOT analysis of your college for the period of 5 years. So that information is very much useful for your further improvement of the quality and other aspects of the college. Then other one, identification of internal areas of planning and resource allocation. During the preparation, you may understand that what are all the areas of weakness and where we have to allocate, we have to concentrate more. Then that kind of planning we can do. Third one, collegibility of the campus. So collegibility, that means a teamwork will create the campus. Then funding agencies, they look for the objective data for performance funding. So obviously they need some kind of filtering factor for giving funding, so that this may be one of the factor. Then institutions to initiate some innovative and modern methods of pedagogy. Obviously they are giving enough weightage for this category, some innovative teaching methodologies and modern methods of pedagogy of teaching. So even in our institution also, for ensuring this weightage, we have purchased kind of instead of using the regular blackboard teaching, we are migrating to the smart board of teaching for the entire classrooms. So thanks to our management, they spent almost 50 lakhs for establishing the smart board classrooms. And another one, new sense of direction and identity of institutions, it may happen once you are entered in the accreditation process. Then the society look for reliable information on quality education offered. This may be applicable to the people, maybe the customer, maybe the parents may look after this kind of information. They want, when they want to admit their ward to your college, then they may ask what kind of qualities whether your institution having. Then another one, in another point, employers also look for some reliable information on the quality of the education offered to the prospective recruits. For the recruitment, they want some quality of the institutions. Then the final one is very important, intra and inter-institutional interaction will happen. Now what we are doing is, we call it as inter-institutional interactions, right? By means of conducting these FDPs, we can share the NAAC accreditation, various quality aspects, whether one institution practicing a good teaching methodology, we can adopt the same methodology to our institution also. It's a kind of sharing the knowledge process only. And obviously, the interaction also will happen. See, if you're going for accreditation, then definitely all the departments in your institution, they have to collaboratively work together to make the complete SSR report. On the other side, what is the benefit of the students? Students, they may get many benefits. an edge over the university students so that they may get a separate identity, then gives the instant recognition also as an alumni of the good graded institutions, then expand placement opportunities with international companies and industries. Good placement also you may get, good employers will come inside to your college. Then a definite chance of better academics, exposure with different peers, labs, workshop, opportunities, projects, all may happen since due to the peer team, during the peer team visit, they will ensure all these physical requirements so that the higher educational institution, they may establish good physical facilities also. Accelerates the exchange program with tie-up from other reputable universities from abroad also. So higher education point of view also it may useful. Then opportunities for further studies, higher educations. So that's what about the introduction of the NAAC accreditation. Then we'll go for some statistics about the NAAC accreditation colleges all over India. NAAC has started the accreditation process. Actually, it is established on 1994. They have started the accreditation process during 1998 only. So you may see that only 9 colleges they got accredited during the year 1998-99. This is the financial year. So gradually it grows, right, from 71 to 41, 672 on during 2003-04. And during the 2004 and 5 session, you may see that a drastic improvement of the colleges, the number of colleges they got accredited by NAAC, 1370. Slowly the awareness has increased. So after that, you may see this a little bit decline here. Then 2007 onwards, again it is gradually increasing. So here they have introduced one more format. So they have changed the format. Then again in 2017, 17 onwards, they have introduced the revised accreditation framework. So in the 2016-17, you may see the peak of the number of colleges they got accreditation. Around 1,600 colleges they got accredited with the NAAC during 2016-17. After 17 onwards, they have introduced the new revised accreditation framework. It is applicable to those who are entering in the cycle 1 and those who are entering in the other cycles also. Even though they are going for renewal also, they may undergo the new accreditation process. So this table shows the number of accreditations cycle wise. First cycle is the new entries and the second cycle, third cycle accordingly the renewal process. So overall 13,256 institutions are accredited up to November 2019. Then this is the categorized based on the ranks which the institutions they got. Rank is maybe based on A, B and C category they have devised. So here you may see that most of the colleges they see around 1,900 colleges they got A grade and most of the colleges they fall in the category of B. You may see that 5,000 around 5,000 colleges they got B grade and rest of the 900 colleges they got C grade. This is another kind of statistics. This is the state-wise number of colleges which is accredited as on March 2020. Then you may see that it is the state-wise statistics in that the maximum number of colleges accredited after this revised accreditation framework is in Maharashtra. So Maharashtra is the leading one for getting NAAC accreditation for higher education colleges. Then second from Tamil Nadu and the third one is from Karnataka. So in the list, the Andhra Pradesh comes next to the Karnataka. Then again Uttar Pradesh also in the same category. So other institutions they are not coming up to the mark. So for that only NAAC they have created many awareness regarding this accreditation process. Next one. I already told that NAAC they are giving the grading to the institution, particular institutions. The grading system earlier they have followed a different grading system. That is from 2007 to 2016 they have followed this kind of grading system, old grading system they have followed. In that you may see that only 4-point grading is there: A, B, C and D. So that only there is no bifurcation here in the new pattern. They have bifurcated into A double plus A. So A is divided into 3, B is also divided into 3 categories, and C is only 1. So that 7-point grading system is adopted after 2016. So up to 2016 only the grading system is they followed is A, B, C, D. A is very good and B is good and C is satisfactory. Based on the range is if your college performs from 3.01 to 4, it is A. 2.01 to 3, it is B, and 1.51 to 2 is C. If you are performing very less than 1.50, it is not accredited. So what NAC found that so many of the colleges, they are falling in the big bandwidth of the group. For example, if you are getting CGPA of 3.01 or if you are getting 3.76, you are falling in the same category, A category. So that there is no much differentiation between the well performing and the average performing institutions. So that NAC wants to revise the grade systems from this ABCD 4-point to 7-point scale. So there and all you can see again the divide is happening. See 2.01 to 2.50, it is B grade. So 0.50 they have given weightage, 50% weightage of the entire bandwidth. Then the rest of the 50% is divided into 2 bandwidths, B plus and B double plus. Here you can see the same way like B what they divided, the same way they divided is A grade also 3.01 to 3.50. 50% of the bandwidth is divided and giving as A, and rest of the 50% is divided into 2 parts, 25% and 25%. So this new grading system is introduced. It was introduced during July 2016, and again the NAC, they have revamped the entire grading system on July 2017 onwards. The reason is July 2017 they have introduced the revised accreditation framework. So I'll tell you the basic difference between you can categorize NAC before July 2017 and after July 2017. The reason is so before that the NAC accreditation is based on only the peer team visits. Either the group of peer team members, they will come for your NAC accreditation, your institution, maybe 3 to 4 or 5 members. It depends on the strength of your college and the departments. Then they may stay up to 3 to 5 days of time, and the entire 5 days they will spend for the assessment and accreditation of your entire report, still study report. Then finally they are coming for the conclusion of grading. So after 2017, they have completely revamped the entire process of the NAC accreditation. So that's why they call it as revised accreditation framework. Let us go for that. So NAC introduced this RAF process in 2017. They call it as it's a complete paradigm shift from the older one. I'll tell you the few things what they introduced in this RAF process. So the very first one is from qualitative peer team judgment to the data-based quantitative indicator evaluation. So that is the major one. Earlier, the assessment is based on the judgment of the peer team. It is purely qualitative thing, but it may vary. The perception may vary. It depends on the nature of the peer team members and all the other things. See, within the day of 3 to 5 days, you can't assess the entire quality manual of the college. So it may a little bit laggy. So that by incorporating this new accreditation framework, around 70% here you can see that around 70% of the accreditation the assessment is based on the quantitative data. That means it is not based on the peer team visit. The rest of the 30% is only based on the peer team visit. And another one is they have incorporated. See, earlier previously, if you want to if you want to get accreditation, you have to prepare the self-study report as a hard copy. You have to make the entire documentation. You have to take the printout, all the things. You should make a copy of a big book. Then you have to make a 3 or 4 copies. You have to send to the NAC office. These and all the earlier thing what we did before that. So now after this digital era, then NAC is also migrated to this ICT enabled accreditation assessment and accreditation process. I think it is the one of the biggest advantage of that. See, during this COVID issue also, I think in my knowledge, many of the NBA accreditation process, mostly NBA is based on the peer team visits. So many of the colleges, they are struggling since all the peer team visits has cancelled due to this COVID outbreak. So, but NAAC process, almost 70% of the process is based on only online. See, even from applying, registering, applying AEQ and SSR and validation, all the process up to evaluation, except the peer team, the final step, all the 70% of the process is based on the online only. So that at any time, even now also, you can apply for the NAAC accreditation process. So they have created an entire separate exclusive web portal for doing all these accreditation and assessment process. Then the third one, drastic reduction in number of questions. They have revamped the entire assessment manual, then size of the report, visit days also. Now they have reduced, earlier it is maybe it may extend to 5 days, now it is reduced to 2 days only. Then next one, they have introduced one more thing, pre-qualifier. Pre-qualifier, earlier they have not introduced anything. See, pre-qualifier means after applying the SSR, then your SSR is evaluated for the 70% of that quantitative thing. Then in that you need to, minimum you need to get 30% in the DVB score. Now in the 2020 manual, they reduced into 25%. So many institutions, even in the pre-qualifying stage itself, they got failed. So that now they reduced this 30% into 25%. So then they have introduced the system generated score instead of the score generated by the peer team members. So almost all the process they have automated. The complete NAAC score is a system generated score, which is based on the assessment on the DVB and student satisfaction survey and the peer team visit. Then probably offline evaluation, online evaluation is 70%. Peer team visit, which allocates 30%. It is approximate only. It may vary, slightly varies. It depends on the university and it depends on the autonomous and affiliated colleges. But average it may 70-30. Then third party validation of data, that is also very important. Your complete SSR is validated by the third party software companies. They have exclusively given the allocated some third party data validation companies. They have undergone your entire SSR report. Then they are evaluating the metric based on the standard operating procedure given supplied to the third party companies. There is no point of violating the standard operating procedure. Based on the SOP only they are giving the validating your SSR. Then the next one, appropriate difference, they are giving appropriate differences in the metrics, weightages, benchmarks to universities, autonomous colleges, affiliated colleges. You know that university and autonomous colleges, they are having enormous academic flexibility. They can do the academic framework, they can design the curriculum, and even they can choose the courses also. But as an affiliated colleges, you may not get that kind of freedom. So that a common manual is not appropriate for all these kind of institutions. So that they have released a different manual for each university and autonomous college and affiliated colleges. So if you are affiliated college, then you have to go through your specific manual which is released for the affiliated colleges. Then the final one, enhanced participation of students and alumni in the assessment process. This is the new thing they have introduced in the accreditation process, RAF, that they have conducted the student satisfaction survey through online mode. So during the submission of SSR, you have to submit the student detail, that presently studying students detail. Then NAAC randomly selects kind of set of 10% of students. Then they will send some questionnaires. Then based on the response from the student, they will give kind of 50 weightage is given to that particular the student satisfaction survey process. Now they have increased from 50 to 60%. And one more thing, alumni also they have incorporated during the peer team visit. The peer team members, they will interact with the alumni and the presently studying students, even parents and employers also. So again, after incorporating this RAF 2017, then now again it is 2020. From January onwards, they have revised the quality manual based on the feedback which is obtained from the various kind of institutions all around India. So based on that, they have adopted the whatever the feedback given by the institutions. They have adopted and revised the new manual which is released from January 2020. And this is what the new grading system which is applicable from 2017 onwards. Earlier I showed you, see, in this grading system you may see that the basic difference is this new grading system is applied only for only 1 year. Since here you may see the big bandwidth in the A grade. See 3.01 to 3.50 they have given A grade. So this also, see, most of the institutions, they are falling between 3.01 and 3.50. They want to make the differentiation between that kind of institutions, so that they introduce, see, here this 3.01 to 50 is again divided into two categories: 3.01 to 3.25 as A grade, 3.26 to 3.50 is A plus grade. So if you are crossing 3.51, and you may get A double plus grade. This is what they revamped in the grading system when they incorporated during 2016. Next one, it's a kind of another statistics after incorporating RAF. It is from July 2017 to 2020 July up to, this is the current statistics, which is this I have taken from the NAAC website, so that you can see this pie chart. From that you can easily understand. See, it is the college based in. So most of the colleges got accreditation. See, this big bandwidth is from the affiliated colleges only. So around this 4.7% of university they got accreditation during this revised process. This 3 years. Autonomous colleges 8%. Then affiliated colleges 25.9% of the college. So this is affiliated. Again, they have divided these affiliated colleges into UG and PG. So around 25% of UG colleges they have got. Then around 60% of PG colleges they got the accreditation. So the basic difference between UG and PG colleges, if you are running only UG courses exclusively, for example, BE Mechanical Civil and BSc or BCom, like that. See, if your institution offering some PG courses, for example, MCom, MSc, ME, then you may comes under PG colleges. Suppose if your college is offering only UG colleges like BE Mechanical and Civil and offering the PhD courses, for example, PhD in mechanical or any other disciplines, you are not offering any exclusive PG courses. Even though you are not offering, you may consider as PG college since you are offering the PhD course. This is another kind of statistics based on the grade obtained by the institution for this after this accreditation new framework. So you may see the most of the colleges are falling under the category of B and B double plus. Nearly 50%, see 33 from B and 17% of colleges they got B plus. So after this accreditation process, nearly 50% of colleges they got B grade, B and B plus grade. And the rest of the 50% is divided by the other grades. For example, B double plus 14% of college they got, and A grade. See, as a NAAC definition, if you are getting A, it is a very good one. So that A plus and A double plus is the desire for all the institution to get the grades. See, A they may get 8%, 8.47, sorry 8.7, and A plus it is again very minimum 4.4%. Around 69 colleges all around India they got the grades. See, A plus it is not at all 1%. See, A double plus. So you may see that only 0.9% of colleges they got A double plus. In my knowledge, in Tamil Nadu, only one autonomous engineering college they got A double plus. So C, almost C also there, 18% of college they got C grade, and D, that means you know that D is not accredited. Even 1.5% of college are not accredited after this entire process. Even they may get pre-qualified and they may get less CGPA. So I want to show some press releases after this new accreditation process incorporated. See, this one of the famous college in Tamil Nadu, Presidency College. Earlier they got some accreditation with a good grade, A grade or something. Again, they are entering through this new accreditation process with the second cycle. They want to renew their accreditation. In that, they are managed to get only 2.58. Then that means B plus grade. So this is what a red alert given to the institutions once, especially for the reputed institutions. Those who already got a good NAAC accreditation grade, for example, they may get A plus or A or A double plus also. After they are entering through this revised process, it is drastically, their grading is drastically reduced. See, earlier their grade is A plus, now they are reduced into B plus. So this is what the scenario, but their claim is this based on the what they call it as your entire self-study report is based on the quantitative instead of qualitative. That's what's their claim. But no other somehow the quantitative data is also somehow directly or indirectly which reflects the qualitative of your college also. So I'll show the another examples. See, Punjab Engineering College is a very famous college in Punjab. So it performs very poor in the NAAC grading. So you may see that NAAC grading, they are managed to get only 2.71 CGPA that falls under the B plus grade. See, most of their affiliated colleges with Punjab Engineering College or Punjab University, they see around 10 affiliated colleges in that city. They got more good rank than this college. So this is also a red alert to these kind of reputed institutions. Another one, we may call it as Oxford of the East, that we call it as Bihar College, Bihar, that is Patna College in Bihar. They ranked, it is a very old college, they ranked, see, you can see that 1.62, it is a C grade. So around, you may see the establishment here, 156-year-old Patna College, they managed to get only this kind of CGPA. So this will give some message to all the higher educational colleges that you have to work hard for preparing your self-study report for this entire NAAC accreditation framework. So why the good grades matters? That is very important. So why I should get good grades? Good grades mean A or A plus plus. There are certain advantages are there. If you get a good NAAC score, then you are eligible for getting autonomous status. In the next slide, I'll explain. Then if you want to start a new course, pre-approval of the UGC, you need to get that. Then definitely based on your grade only, they will give new courses. Then poor scoring institutions are not eligible for funding from MHRD. Definitely they won't give funding to C grade colleges. Then it will also impact the placement of the certain companies. Since if your grading is low, definitely good recruiters will not come to your college. So again, the eligibility of various MHRD schemes also requires a good grade based on the grading systems. And the another one is getting autonomous status. So nowadays, most of the institutions, so once they are crossing the 10 years of period, then they want to, their desire is they want to become an autonomous status. So these are the basic eligibility requirements for getting autonomous status. One by one I'll tell you. So these three are the basic mandatory requirements for applying for the autonomous status of your college. So minimum 10 years of existence of your college. Second one, 2F certificate under UGC you have to get. That we can get no problem. If you apply to UGC, if you satisfy basic academic and other requirements, you may get 2F. And the third one is very important, NAAC with minimum A grade. Then only you are eligible for applying the autonomous status. Then next one, if you are satisfying these three conditions, you may apply to the UGC, and UGC will form one separate peer team committee. Then they will again visit it to your college, whether your college is prepared for autonomous status or not. Based on the report, they will grant the status of autonomous. Then again, without peer team visit also, they will grant autonomous status. If your college performs A plus grade, that means CGPA of 3.26 to 3.50, 2 times, that means 2 cycles continuously. If you get A plus grade, then they are granting the autonomous status without on-site visit. That is the one category. And if your institution is getting A double plus grade as a first time, then no issue without any thing. If you apply, definitely they will give the A double plus grade. Sorry, definitely they will grant the autonomous status for your institution without the peer team visit. So that getting good grade is very important for getting autonomous status. Then we will go for the next one. Why NAAC is mandatory for the higher education institutions? It is actually NAAC requests the higher education institution to apply for the assessment accreditation. Now it becomes mandatory based on the UGC quality mandate. So they have released that during their 532 meeting, which is held on 24th May 2018. The resolutions of that, in that fifth resolution is every institution shall get NAAC accreditation with a minimum score of 2.5 by 2022. So now we are in 2020, so that within 2 years of duration, we should get NAAC, their intention is all the HEAs, they should apply for the NAAC accreditation process. Irrespective of the grade, if they are eligible, if they are crossing 6 years or 2 batches gone out, they should definitely they should enter for the NAAC accreditation process. So next one. So NAAC is assessed based on the criteria. You may know even NBA also based on the criteria based assessment only. There in NBA process you may see that 10 criteria are there. So you may know that the NBA is for only programs, but in that out of 10 criterions, maybe 7 is mean for program level criterions and 3 for the institution level criterions. But here in the NAAC, the entire 7 criteria are based on only it depends on it depicts the entire institutions, not a particular program. So all the aspect which covers the entire institutions. The criteria based assessment forms the backbone of the A&A process. So that 7 criteria is the major one, which represents the core functions and activities of the HEAs. We'll tell one by one. We'll deeply discuss all these criteria in the day 3 session. So this is a very important topic. So later on we'll discuss. I'll tell a few things. One is curricular aspects. Second one, teaching, learning and evaluation. In NAAC, they are giving more weightage to this second category. Third one, criteria 3 is based on research, innovation and extension. Mostly the institutions are differentiated based on this third category, like university and autonomous and affiliated colleges. Then the fourth one, infrastructure and learning resources, that depends on the physical facility of your college. Fifth one, student support and progression, how your college supports the students and their progress. Then the sixth one is related to the management part, how your management established the standards and following the norms. Then the seventh one, it is a peculiar one, institutional values and best practices, that we will detailedly discuss in the third session. So these are the weightages given to the various criteria. There are 7 criteria are there. So in this first column, which represents U means university, then AU means autonomous colleges. Affiliated colleges again divided into 2 categories, affiliated UG and affiliated PG. So all the 4 things they have revised, they have released the different variety of manuals. See, you may see the weightages. See, at the overall, the entire weightage is only 1000 for all the university autonomous and all the UG affiliated colleges. But if you are going inside the criterions, each criterion they have allocated different weightages. They have given weightages, it depends on the nature of the college. If it is a university, they are giving weightage, more weightage to the research, innovation and extension. If it is an affiliated college, they are giving more weightage to the teaching learning process. So such that they may give the variation. So entire overall weightage is 1000. Next one, what are the major phases of assessment in the NAAC accreditation process? So these 7 criteria which contains key indicators, 32 key indicators are there. We will detailedly discuss in the third session. So that key indicators, under that where various metrics are allocated, that is 96 metrics in the PG colleges. So there are 2 different variety of metrics which is in your SSR. We call it as quantitative metrics, that we call it as QNM, quantitative metrics, and another one is qualitative metrics, we call it as QLM. So these two, what are the quantitative and qualitative, we'll discuss later. At this moment, I will tell you the quantitative means it is a quantifiable facts and figures as data. So in the next slide, I will show few examples of quantitative metrics and qualitative metrics. It is one example of quantitative data. Here they are asking the number of value-added courses in your college. See, number, they are asking a particular number. It is a quantitative one, so that it comes under QNM category. Another one, I'll show one example. It is the example for QLM category. See, whether your institute integrates the cross-cutting issues, they want to write they want to answer the particular metric in the text or elaborated category, that is upload your description with maximum 500 words. You need to answer this questionnaire as a descriptive one, so that this kind of thing we call it as QLM, qualitative metrics. So I want to tell one thing, then this out of these two, this entire quantitative metrics which occupies 70% of your SSR, and the rest of the qualitative metrics occupies 30% of your SSR. So more weightage is given to quantitative metrics. The entire QNM is evaluated based on only online process. There is no peer team visit. The role of the peer team visit is to evaluate this 30% of the qualitative metrics. So that's what the role of peer team visit. So that during the submission of SSR, you have to submit both QNM and QLM, but peer team visit, during the peer team visit, they will assess only 30%. So how this MGP means metric grade point. These metrics are allocated weightages. That weightages are converted into marks. Then again, that each metric mark is converted into credit CGPA. So sorry, criteria CGPA. Each criteria we need to calculate CGPA. That means we need to calculate 7 criteria. Is there 7 criteria CGPA we need to calculate individually. Then again, based on the 7 CGPA, you have to arise the overall CGPA of your institution. Then that CGPA is converted into grade. This is what the assessment and evaluation process. So the entire grading process, how the CGPA is evaluated and grading, we will discuss at the end of this FDP. That is 5th day of the FDP. Another one important assessment methodology here is, so already I informed that only 2 things are there, QNM and QLM. In the QNM process, you can see the second category, teaching, learning and evaluation. They have introduced out of 350, 50 weightage is given to student satisfaction survey. So this comes under QNM. So it is an entirely different process than the online and peer team visit. So during the submission of your SSR, you have to submit the database of your presently studying students. NAAC will send a survey questionnaire that contains 20 MCQ questions which relates to the satisfaction of students in the teaching learning process. Entire 20 questions are depending on ensuring the teaching learning process in the institutions. It is the objective type questions, that is MCQ questions. So I will show some few samples here. See that question number 1, you can see how much of the syllabus was covered in the class. So they are grading into 5-point grade. See 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are from 0 to 4 they are grading. If your institution, suppose your students answer, that is average answer is 70 to 84% they satisfied with the syllabus, then you may get the grade point of 3. So the entire grading and all we will discuss later. Right? Same way the second question also. How well did the teachers prepare for the classes? Right? So now actually previously they have given 50 weightage for this student satisfaction survey. After 2020, now again they have given more weightage to this, that is from 50 it is increased to 60 weightage. So actually after the evaluation of DVV, NAAC will reveal your the score of this SSS student satisfaction survey. In our institution we got this out of 4 scale. So actually it is the maximum score is 4. Out of 4 we got 3.54 out of this. This will directly reflect the satisfaction of teaching learning process from the students. Yeah, another one. Criteria is further delineated into key indicators, then further into metrics. So these are the various distribution of the metrics and key indicators in the various category of colleges. So almost criteria is common for all the colleges. Key indicators may vary. See here, autonomous and universities both same, but affiliated colleges it may slightly reduced. Same way, QNM and QLM also it may vary. See, total metrics for affiliated UG colleges is 93. 93 questions are there, and PG colleges it is 96. So these are the few keywords actually which is framed by the NAAC. These keywords are whenever if you are referring the manual, they are introducing these keywords and their acronym you should understand. HEI is the higher educational institution, IAQA institutional information for quality assessment, SSR is the self-study report, then QNM is the quantitative metrics, QLM is the qualitative metrics. Key indicators, DVV, data verification and validation process, peer team visit, PTV, student satisfaction survey. IQAC is the mandatory cell for NAAC that we will discuss at the end of the fifth day. Internal quality assurance cell. AQR is applicable only for the institutions they are going for the second cycle. So if you are going for the renewal, you need to submit the annual quality assurance report every year after you are getting the first accreditation process. So that at the end of the renewal process, you need to submit 4 AQR report to the NAAC. Now they made it as mandatory. So now we are entering to the major accreditation process. Right. These are the process flow of accreditation. We have sort of time, only 10 minutes is there for ending this session, so that shortly I will convey the entire process. So probably tomorrow we will discuss in detail. So these are the overall flow of the NAAC accreditation process. The first one is we need to register our institution in the online portal of NAAC. Then the second one, that is the HEI registration. Second one, institutional information for quality assessment, that is the IAQA. This requires by the NAAC for ensuring that your college is eligible for submitting the SSR report for the college. Even IAQA submission also, many colleges they got rejected. There are certain standard minimum requirements are there. If you are not eligible, then they may rejected your IAQA. After 1 year, you need to again submit. Then SSR is the major one. You need to submit SSR self-study report. That is the major one. Then after that, your SSR is evaluated based on DVV and SSS, student satisfaction survey. Then after that, 70% of your SSR is evaluated. In that, at least you need to score 30% to get pre-qualified for the peer team visit, the further final process. If you get pre-qualification, then we are moving to the peer team visit management process. It will happen after that pre-qualified within 1 month period. Then you may get kind of information from the NAAC committee. Then they will form one committee with 2 or 3 peer team members. It depends on the strength and the number of programs in your college. Then based on that, they will visit your college. They will assess the 30% of the rest of the SSR. That is qualitative management. That is what mentioned here. The entire role of the peer team is to ensure the 30% of self-study report. The final process is after the peer team visit will submit the entire report to the NAAC committee. Then NAAC will evaluate your total CGPA based on the assessment by DVV 70% and assessment by assessment by peer team 30% plus student satisfaction survey, so that the entire 100% is assessed by the system generated score. It is purely processed on computer. After that, CGPA was developed, is generated. Then based on that CGPA is converted into grade accordingly. After the submission of SSR, that is verified by DVV, then peer team visit. Then after that, the entire assessment happens. Then the grade declaration process. So these are the entire steps. We will detailedly discuss all these steps from tomorrow onwards. I'll show the timeline flowchart for the NAAC accreditation process. So after the registration, it takes only 2 hours for registering your institution in the NAAC portal. So there is no need of paying any fees for registration. If you are going for MBA, for registration itself, you need to pay 1 lakh rupees. But for registering in the institution, no need to pay any fees in the NAAC portal. It is a simple process. It requires some few data. Tomorrow we'll discuss. Then IIQA is the first prime step in the NAAC accreditation process. So IIQA also, it is in my opinion within 2 to 3 days you can prepare IIQA. It has only 4 fundamental details of the institution, not much data. But the problem is, once if you upload the IIQA within 10 to 15 days of time, you may see here 10 to 15 days of time, you may receive the acceptance or rejection of IIQA. If your IIQA is accepted, then within the duration of 45 days, you need to upload the self-study report. So that is the major checkpoint which the NAAC made for the institutions. See, if after submission of IIQA, if you are starting preparing your SSR report, definitely that 45 days time is not sufficient for preparing the entire SSR. Since preparing SSR is a huge task and it involves a lot of efforts from all the faculty members and all the departments. Since it involves collection of the previous 5 years data, and we need to prepare the supporting documents for the data also. So it is a huge process. So in my suggestion, before going for applying IIQA, better you can prepare the at least 70 to 80% of SSR. Then you can go for submission of IIQA. That is the wise thing. Otherwise, again, your eligibility for submitting SSR is rejected. Then again you should repeat the process from this first step, IIQA. Again, you need to submit IIQA after 6 months of duration. So that it is a kind of point you should understand. Then after that submission of SSR, that complete SSR report is evaluated through online only by the third-party software vendors. They are based on the report submitted by you through online. They are evaluated, and within a period of 30 days time, they will send some clarifications to you also. Whatever the data you submitted, they will send the clarifications. Parallelly, they will start the student satisfaction survey also. From the day 1 onwards, after the submission of self-study report, from the day 1 onwards, they will start the student satisfaction survey also. So parallel will go within a 1 month duration, all the DVV and the student satisfaction survey, both will come in the end. Then after the clarification, you are allowed to give your clarifications to the NAAC DVV partners. Within 10 to 15 days, you need to upload the clarifications. So after that, you may receive within 10 days, you may receive the pre-qualified stage. If you are performing your SSR performing minimum 30%. So I already told you, now it is reduced to 25%. So you may receive the confirmation mail from the NAAC that reflects that your institution is pre-qualified for submitting the self-study report. So then only you are eligible for the peer team visit, not self-study report. You are eligible for the peer team visit. So if you are not pre-qualified, that means if you are performing less than 30%, then what will happen? Again, after 1 year, so again you need to redo the process from starting from IIQA. So that is the pathetic thing. So from the NAAC database, NAAC statistics, around 5% of the institutions, they have got rejected during IIQA, and 20% of nearly 10 to 15% of the institutions, they got rejected in pre-qualification stage. So based on the request from many institutions, now they have reduced this pre-qualification state from 30 to 25%. So after that, NAAC will, once you receive, you are eligible for peer team visit. You may schedule the dates for the peer team visits. NAAC will give the choice to the institutions. You may select 2 days of duration with 3 choices. You may select 3 random choices. You may select within the gap of that is 15 days gap. Suppose if you choose on May 1 and 2, then you may choose after 15 days, that is May 15 and 16, like that. You may choose 3 choices. From the NAAC will choose any one choice, then the peer team members will visit your college, then they will do the evaluation of the entire 30% of your SSR, rest of the 30%. So after that, within maybe within a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks or 15 days of time duration, you may receive your CGPA, the entire evaluated CGPA and the complete report of your college, then the corresponding grade also you may get. So that if you get the grade, that is valid for 5 years of duration. You know that then after 5 years, you may go for the next accreditation process. Before that, there are a lot of things are there. We'll discuss later. So this is what the overall idea and timeline of the NAAC. So in my opinion, if you are starting the IIPA submission process now, like this month, if you start, then maybe getting the grade declaration. The time limitation, maybe it may around, it requires minimum 6 months of duration. That's what in my experience I learned. So it depends on when you are submitting SSR and how you may clarify the DVV and the details of the date of peer team visit management. See, already we submitted the entire thing and we pre-qualified for this NAAC accreditation process. Even though we have scheduled also, we have scheduled 3 dates in the month of May and April and May. So during that time, unfortunately, we due to this COVID-19 epidemic, so outbreak, so that NAAC decided to postpone all the peer team visit, even it applicable to all colleges. So that we also got affected with this. But we are waiting now. We are almost we almost prepared the entire data and documentation and various physical requirements, and we are almost ready for the NAAC accreditation peer team visit. So we are expecting that this scenario will change within a couple of months. Then maybe we are expecting at the end of this year for the peer team visit. So that's what for today's my session. Actually, the detailed thing we will discuss on tomorrow's session. I want to complete the session precisely. These and all we will discuss tomorrow. Another one very important thing, what is the entire fee structure for starting from IIPA to getting the grade? What is the fee structure? This is the kind of, this may vary, depends on the nature of the college. This is for affiliated colleges. For IIPA submission, you need to pay 25,000 plus 18% of GST applicable. On the time, around 30,000 you need to pay. Then SSR submission, SSR fees is actually you may pay in 2 installments. That is, total fees is around 3,60,000 more, and you may divide that into 2 phases. During the submission of SSR, you need to pay 1,87,500 plus GST. Around 2,30,000 it will come. Peer team visit, you need to pay again the same amount. So once your SSR is accepted and finally you get pre-qualified, during the scheduling of peer team visit, you need to pay the rest of the SSR amount. The same amount you need to pay. Then the final one, NAAC will arrange the logistics and boarding and lodging, all the things to the peer team members by own, so that you no need to, the HEAs, they don't need to arrange any hospitality and lodging and other facilities to the peer team members. For that, we need to pay the fees that we call it as logistic fee of 1,50,000 plus GST. So overall, it is the entire accreditation and assessment process. We need to pay around 5,50,000 plus 18% of GST. For teacher training and some of the other colleges, it may slightly vary. It depends. If your institution running more than 10 programs, then maybe it requires more peer team members, so that this fees may vary slightly, may increase. So these are the roles and responsibilities of the faculty. These are all very important. See, if you are going to submit the SSR, you need to prepare the last 5 years data of your entire college. So it is a tedious task. Suppose if you are applying NAAC for this year 2021, you need to prepare the last 5-year data. This is first, second, third, fourth, and 5th year. The 5th year we call it as current year in NAAC format, and applied year they won't consider. So that last 5-year data you need to submit. So in that all the 5 years you need to collect the data, supporting documents, and all the other requirements from the manual. So that's a kind of tedious task. If you start collecting this kind of, if you are going for the cycle 1, it's a tough task. You need to spend a lot of time with the faculty members. You have to allocate the separate metrics to the faculty. Then you have to make the coordinators. It's a kind of big teamwork is required for making the complete SSR of your college. And these are some guidelines for that. Yeah, submitting document also you should make clear and legible. It is very important. Some of the frequently asked questions, yeah, already we discussed that accreditation is mandatory. Suppose mostly we are in SSR, we are merely prepare the document self-study report. Then if you are giving any false data, suppose your placement is only 50%, if you are giving a wrong data of 70 like that, then if during DVV they will ensure they will cross verify the data submitted by you. If they found any deviations from your data from the actual fact, then they may give some punishable actions to you, to your institutions. These are listed, so that better you can prepare the actual fact data. Then you should not make the data, you should prepare the actual data. The validity is actually it is applicable for 5 years. Some exceptional case they will give the 7 years of validity. So peer team members usually reputed academic professors. They already trained for evaluating the entire SSR, so that the assessor they know the entire process of this. They are very specific. If you are coming to the college for assessing your SSR, they are keen on evaluating the entire QLM, qualitative metrics. Their questionnaires is based on the QLM. Yeah, that's it about my presentation. Then I'll quit my screen share. Then after that, 5 minutes, you can ask any questions. So I'll check the chat also. Few questions are there. Yeah, what are the changes in 2020 NAC accreditation process? Yeah, they have not changed much, but 2020 they have not changed the accreditation process, but they have changed the manual, especially in the metrics, based on the feedback received from the previously accredited institution through this revised accreditation process. They have adopted few changes in few criteria. For example, criteria 1, the entirely around 70% of metrics they have completely revamped. Again, weightage itself also they have changed. They have rearranged the weightages to metrics. And student satisfaction survey, especially student satisfaction survey, they have changed into from 50 to 60, such that many variations are there. We'll discuss the overall, the complete manual, what are all the qualitative and quantitative things. We'll discuss in the third day session. So from tomorrow onwards, we'll start entering to the detailed steps of the overall process from IAQ registration itself. We can see question from Navina. After submission and completion of formalities, how long it will take to grant the NAC? After submission and completion of formalities, what I mean is that means after DVV, maybe after peer team visit, it may take. It depends on the after every month, during the every month, NAC will conduct a kind of board meeting to release the grading for all the colleges. If your peer team visit may happen at the end of the month, whether NAC conducts on the first week of that next month, then you may get the grade within 1 week also. Then how long it will take? Question from Parvati. How long it will take for acceptance of IAQA? See, if you are submitting if you are submitting IAQA on 1st of the month, for example, 1st of August, then within 10 to 15 days, you may receive the acceptance or rejection of IAQA. Only it will take 10 to 15 days. But the problem is, you should submit the self-study report from within 45 days from the date of acceptance of IAP.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So you should be very careful for submitting IAQA, but you may submit. You can submit or you can prepare the IAQA within 2 to 3 days. It is so simple process. But once you submit it, your time count starts. Within 15 days of duration, you should submit the entire SSR. It's a kind of tough process.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
Sir, UG and PG college, can you differentiate UG and PG?
Yeah. What is the question? UG and PG colleges?
PG colleges. If our college has a PG program, then we have to go with PG, or how is it, sir? How we can differentiate it?
See, the difference between UG colleges and PG colleges is if your college offering only UG programs, exclusive UG programs. That means only BE Mechanical Civil or BSc something, then it considered as UG college. Suppose if you are offering both UG and PG courses like MSc, BSc or ME, whatever the thing, along with UG, then it is considered as PG college. Third one, if you are offering UG and PhD, not PG, PhD, then also it is considered as PG college.
It is also considered PG college.
PG.
Okay.
Obviously, if you are submitting a IAQA, then automatically it is considered as PG. The corresponding metrics will be open in the online portal of your HCA.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, we have enough time. Maybe if we have 4 more days is there. So probably if you have any questions, you may ask in the tomorrow session. Then tomorrow's session is entirely planned for the detailed steps involved in the registration, AQA, then some basics about the submission of SSR. Right. So that's it about my end. Then thank you very much for all the participants who are joining to this 5 days FDP program. Now the session is over to Dr. Mohan. You can, Dr. Mohan, sir.
Yes, sir. I thank you all for joining our FTB. Link for day 2 section will be sharing through WhatsApp and email. Thank you.